Hi, my name's Wade Lawler. I'm the president of the Clinton Historical Society, and I tell stories. And my story today is on George Eastman, the Waterville man who created Kodak. Don't believe everything you read. If you go through Waterville, you'll see this sign in front of the old high school, and it says birthplace of George Eastman. Well, it's not true. This is where he was born. It's the parking lot across from St. Bernard's on Stafford. Yeah, so that's why the Pomeroy Foundation is so much of a stickler on getting your accurate history because of this kind of situation. This is the home that he was born in. This house was moved several times. It was moved in '57 to Genesee Country Village. This is a site where his father, George Washington Eastman, ran a fruit tree nursery and grew roses, and his wife, Maria Kilgore, raised the family.
Is this still Waterville, though?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. The house has been moved, but it's not. Okay. This is Maria on the left and George Washington and Eastman on the right. Maria never looked happy in any photographs I've ever seen. Well, George here had a business school in Rochester, and he split his time between Waterville and Rochester. They picked up stakes out of Waterville, they moved to Rochester, and George was 6 when he moved to Rochester. And as soon as a couple years after moving to Rochester, George Washington Eastman dies from a brain disease, whatever. So it's just Maria, George, Ellen, and Katie. Katie has polio. She dies in 1870, and Ellen dies in 1884. So for most of his life, George Eastman is just with him and his mother. Now, because his mother had to take on boarders, and it was hard to make ends meet, George quit school at 14 and becomes an errand boy in an insurance company, making $3 a week. And he's the kind of guy that marked down every cent that he's spent in a diary or a log. So he always kept track of money. Money was always important to him. Let's talk about photography, because that's what Eastman's known for. The first photo was taken in 1827, and it kept, changing. Daguerreotypes were started in 1839. It was an image on a silver-plated copper plate. It was commonly housed in ornate hinged cases with glass covers. You'll see them, they're little tiny things, and they open it up. They're very light sensitive, so if you open it up for a long time, they become white. And then there was tintype. It's another metal that was polished and put silver on it and exposed. The thing is, you had to have a lot of equipment and chemicals to make a photograph. That's why you don't see a lot of old photographs of scenic views or structures. Usually it's portraits, just like this little girl right here. And because you had to sit still for such a long exposure, they told you don't smile. So you'll see a lot of people looking like this. Maria always looked like that, but most we were told this looks okay. The next development was glass plates. They were called wet plates because you would take a piece of glass, pour your chemicals, drip it wet, stick it in your camera, expose it, take the plate out, develop it right then and there, wherever you are, to develop. So you had to take about 100 pounds of equipment in a tent. It was very cumbersome. This is a picture of Clinton during the centennial, and I love this because it's one of the few photos that show a picture of somebody taking a picture. If you look on the top of the roof right here, it's where Utica Coffee is today. Somebody taking a photograph of the parade. I think that's a dry plate operation there. So the story is, George Eastman gets a job in the Rochester Bank, becomes a clerk there, and he's making a decent wage. He's taking care of his mother. And he's going to go to San Domingo on a vacation. One of his friends says, why don't you take some pictures? He says, well, that's a great idea. So he buys his whole outfit and has no clue how to do it. He has to hire somebody to teach him. And I think this is where he says, well, we got to make this simpler. So he started working on a dry plate process in his kitchen sink back in his house after work. So his mother would wake up, come down to the kitchen, and find him asleep at the table working on these dry plates. This is him showing at the bank with his colleagues. And the real thing that pushed him right over the cliff was that one of the bank manager's nephew was promoted over. And that pushed him right. So I'm going to just go into business for myself. And later on, he always wanted to promote within his own company. He didn't like to go on outside unless it was for talent. So George Eastman, this is what he looks like. Working in his mother's kitchen at night, he invents the dry plate in 1880. And you'll see a lot of different facial hair on George Eastman. I don't think he was ever comfortable. Of course, he looked very, opening pictures, you'll see he looked very young. Sort of like, me when I was young. I had grew a mustache and looked older. One of those kinds of deals. And where does the name Kodak come from? Well, the story is, he had to come up with a name for his company, and he wanted a name that couldn't be confused with any other product. So he took a kid's game, sort of like Scrabble with tiles. He started playing around with it. And he liked the letter K, he thought it was dignified. It was also the first letter in his mother's name, Kilborn. So he came up with Kodak. It's easy to pronounce, plain language, and it's not confused with any other product. So this is the first factory in Rochester, the dry plate company. And we just happen to have in our collection, which Anna also helpfully found for me. This is Eastman dry plates. I always think it'd be huge, but these are small. So that was his first big deal in photography, dry plates. Because now photographers could take a dry plate out, put it in the camera, take the picture, take it out, bring it back home or the office or then develop it. You didn't have to do it on site, which was a big convenience. This is some of his early dry plate workers, and he wasn't afraid to hire women. A lot of women worked for him in his factories, which is kind of going against what was normal. Well, he comes up with the first camera. He shrunk all those bulky equipments into a box like this size, which made you can pass it around. That's one of the later models. But the first film in these cameras, the film was on paper. And his idea was to put it on rollers, so you could put it in the box, take a picture, rotate it to the next picture. There was 100 photos in every box. It was very simple. You just push the button, and then you would send the whole package back to the Eastman company. They would develop it and put a fresh roll in it. And all the early pictures were round. So if you see a round picture from the time I was from an early Kodak camera. And this is the genius of George Eastman, his advertisement. He says, you press the button, which is on the side of the camera, we do the rest. You didn't have to worry about anything. You just put it in the mail, shipped it back, they did everything, peeled the photographs off the paper, developed it, sent it back to you, of course, for a charge, and they charged for the film. This is the old razor blade model, where you sold the camera cheap. This is only 26 bucks. But you had to buy the film to go in it, and that's where the real money was. This next development is Eastman and Henry Reichenbach created Kodak nitrocellulose film, which was this film that was very flexible. You could twist it. It was easy to roll onto the next rollers. It was very easy to develop. You didn't have to peel paper away from the emulsion. The only thing is, somebody else claimed that they invented it. So it was a big patent infringement lawsuit. It took 5 years, and they finally settled it against Eastman. He had to pay $5 million, which is kind of bargain because they wanted $25 million. But with this, it was very easy to push the camera. He comes up with a very cheap camera called the Brownie, based on the same thing as a Kodak, but it was only sold for $1 in 1900, using the new film. And that's the Brownie. It was targeted for everybody. Now you can afford to own a camera. You can afford to have pictures of your loved ones or wherever you went on vacation. You didn't have to hire an expensive photographer to do it for you. That, you can see the rollers in here that you would put the film on. But you didn't have to do any worrying because you sent the whole thing to Eastman and Rochester and they developed the picture for you. Huge success. He's on his way to making billions. And not only was his business confined to the United States, he went after the European markets and the Orient. This is him using a Brownie on ship en route to Europe. He even went to Japan, where they had a camera club. So he's sitting there with the rest of them. So it was worldwide, it wasn't just in America. This is his first offices and factory in Rochester. They soon outgrew this. So he bought a huge plot, I think it was 200 acres, and he started building what he called the Kodak Park. And this is construction work is building a reservoir for the Kodak Park.
What time is, or what date is this?
1900.
1900.
Right. This is the Kodak Park. At one time, it had 60,000 employees. So basically, Rochester worked for Kodak, or you worked for a business that supported the Kodak workers, your restaurants or taxis, whatever. But if you got a job at Kodak, you were pretty set for life. It's so big, it had its own fire department. It also had its own train, water supply, power station, all to make it work.
Were they connected to the Franklin, the Westinghouse? How did that?
No, it wasn't.
They had their own?
Yes. This is all just Kodak. It's in Rochester.
He had his own electric?
Yes, and his own like a power plant. Because the city of Rochester couldn't support the factory. So he was making tons of money, so he was able to afford that. He also kept updating his product, making better cameras, better film. He would go after other people's ideas. He believed in espionage. He would go into other people's factories to see what they were doing. If somebody had a patent on something that he liked, he'd go and buy it. And he had a lot of money to buy it. So, kept building. On the same token, he had hired private detectives to go follow his salesmen to make sure they were selling his product right. He also had his office next to the ladies' washroom, and he always gave, the evil eye to anybody who was going to the bathroom a lot. So yeah, so people would say that's very unnerving watching somebody. So Eastman sponsored picnics. This is one of the early picnics. Later on, the attendees would be in the thousands. So he took care of his workers. They had their own factory teams, softball leagues, bowling leagues. He was sort of like capitalistic socialism. He provided health care, pensions, vacations, sick times. You went to a park, it was probably George Eastman's park. Schools were funded by him. Dentistry, everything was controlled by Eastman and had his name on it. So it was like happy utopia for factory workers. And that kept all the workers loyal. Not only did they have to sign a confidentiality thing so they couldn't divulge any secrets, all the processes were compartmentalized. So one person didn't know what the other person was doing in another building. So the trademark secrets were kept secret. Only a few people knew the whole process.
Excuse me, sir. What is?
That is the Brownie.
That's the Brownie.
That's the first camera. Yep.
When did the pictures change from round?
So as they started, I would say around 1890, they started going to.
Before the
When they got the flexible film, that made it all much better. Good question. Advertisement. He was always good on advertisement. What's he selling here? Kids can use it. It's so simple, kids can use it. How about here? Even women can use it. Yeah. And if you're affluent, you know, hip. The Kodak was targeted to rich people. You can see this rich girl coming out of her limousine with a camera. Again, even girls can use it. Early Kodak advertisement made picture taking glamorous. This, of course, in World War II, World War I was just over, and planes were the hot item. You can see the model holding the camera, taking a picture of the plane. This woman's holding a pocket Kodak. You see she's got the furs. So if you were hip, you had a camera. The Kodak girl was featured in a lot of advertisement. The girl next door kind of looked, you know, not too glamorous, but you know, something looking pretty, pushing the camera. How many people have heard the Kodak moment or have used that phrase? His theory is, well, in his advertisement is that if you went on vacation and you didn't take a picture of it, it never happened. So you had to take pictures of your vacation and bring it back to show your friends. And again, you know, look at your, like on an adventure, here you're in Europe and they're photographing the Dutch people with your Brownie and then.
Was this still press one button and that's it and send it off?
Yes, yep. And then when you got to the larger cameras, then you would buy the film. When the flexible film was easy to load or unload. So it was a progress. It wasn't always, but the Brownies started becoming where you could put your own film in it, which made it very, I mean, you didn't have to wait to go to the factory anymore. You just bring it back here, take it to your local Kodak dealership to have the prints made using Kodak paper or chemicals. So it was like a monopoly, because you bought the Kodak camera, you had to use Kodak stuff. There's another picture saying even kids can use it. It works like a Kodak. They talk about the Brownie, so you know, it was a good slogan.
Excuse me, was the Brownie throwaway once you used it, or did you?
No, you kept it. You kept refilling it with film until you moved up to the bigger camera and the nicer camera, the one that you could actually slip into a bag instead of a box.
Really?
What do you think they're selling here in this picture?
How many shots could you take?
100.
100.
In the Brownie, you take 100 shots. Good point. Grover Cleveland, my favorite president, who came from Clinton, he got a Brownie and took it on a vacation up in the Adirondacks.
Yeah.
And first time he ever used it, it's supposed to be real simple, right? So he took 100 pictures with the Brownie, brought it back, only to find out that he never advanced the film. So he took 100 pictures over the same. Yeah. I wouldn't let that get out. But what do you think this picture's about?
Loading this camera.
Yes. But what else? In my head, it's, we're on our honeymoon, and I'm taking time out to reload the camera because I want more memories. And they look like they're hipsters, so. Yeah. So the big thing that made tons of money for Eastman. Is he partnered? You know who this guy is?
Edison.
Edison, right. What did he invent? The motion picture camera. What kind of film was in the motion picture camera? Kodak film.
Of course.
So it was a symbiotic relationship. They made tons and tons of money on this. And this is time where Eastman is with his contemporaries. In this picture, you got Eastman on the left, right here. Anybody know this guy? No. This guy right here. Lindbergh, right. And then you got Edison, and this guy over here. You guys are very good. These are the titans. You had Eastman with the cameras, you had Ford with the cars, and Edison making everything else, it seems like. Let's talk about George's personal life. He was never married. He was always a bachelor. This picture is entitled The Lobster Club. Apparently, he took the ladies of his employees, or like his managers, took their wives to lunch where they had lobster and they would talk about things. So he was always in a crowd of women, it seems. This is Allison Whitney, who was his secretary for 42 years. They sat in the same room, one desk away. She was the gatekeeper. No one saw George unless she allowed it. So she was the filter. Also, when he started to get into philanthropy, she was the one who went through all the letters asking for money, sort out what was worthy and what wasn't. Josephine Dickman. George and Josephine Dickman became friends with Eastman in London. Dickman was the London manager of Kodak. They introduced George to the high life, going to the opera, going to see shows, going to parties. Because George was really a shy man inside. He was really driven in his business, but socially he wasn't all there. So they became good friends, and then George Dick dies in 1893. That's when Josephine and George really become close friends. They're seen everywhere together. He takes her on trips. They go to shows. They go on vacations together. So they were really, really close, but apparently there was nothing going on physically. I don't know if that was true or not, but that's what it was. This is her at the Oak Lodge, which was George Eastman's vacation spot in North Carolina. Very attractive lady. She was a trained singer. I think that's one of the things that George liked about her, because he loved anything that had to do with music. It was big music. Anywhere in his house, there was something that played music. And this is Maria again in old age. Doesn't look any more happier. But George took her everywhere, included her in everything, right up to the day she died. This is Maria in 1902 on a California trip, and they went on trains everywhere. And still not looking happy. She only lived 5 more years. She died in 1907. She broke her hip and was in a wheelchair for the rest of her life. And George saw that and drove him mad, I guess. This is them on the end of a railroad car. Of course, he owned his own railroad car. And this is the nurse, his mother. This is his niece, Ellen, George, Josephine Dickman, and then George Dreyfus, Ellen's husband. Let's talk about the house he lived in. This is the Eastman Estate, really a small farm in the city. It had greenhouses, had cows, chickens, everything right in the city of Rochester. And this is his cottage in Rochester. I think there was everything, he was afraid of fire because there was a fire in his first factory. So this house is basically fireproof. It's all cement, so it'll last forever. Of course, taken after his father, he loved gardens. So the estate has many gardens. This cute guy right here is out there in the garden. This is the view of the courtyard, very beautiful. I strongly recommend that you go visit his home. This is the pergola that we were walking through. Now the interior of the mansion. This is the grand staircase. All the spindles here are in the shape of ropes. So you see that all the spindles are different. He had a conservatory which had a lot of palm trees. You can see all the potted plants here. And the table was set for one. The story is that he woke up, got dressed, and as soon as the door opened, his organist, who he paid to be there, started playing music on the organ. And it wasn't a little tiny organ, not like this thing. He had a 1,000-pipe organ in his house. And imagine coming down there and hear the organ music, and he would have his breakfast like that. That's what the conservatory looks now, and palms. And George was a big game hunter. He had an elephant head mounted, staring down at you. It looks kind of creepy to me. But here's from the balcony looking at it. This is where he would hold concerts, musical concerts, have guys' parties. It was a very beautiful building. On the left is his dining area with everything monogrammed George Eastman on it. On the right is his living room, and he has a piano in it. He couldn't play a lick, but he had people play it for him. Eastman found that he didn't like the sound of the organ in his conservatory. It was square shaped. He thought a rectangle would be better, he could fit more guests. So he split the mansion, jacked up this whole cement building, and moved it 9 feet 6 inches just so his music would sound better. Just so if George wanted something done, it got done.
Did it work?
I'm sorry?
Did it work? Was it?
Yes, yep. Although he was constantly complaining to the organ company about it squeaking. Well, anyway, his getaway home in North Carolina was Oak Lodge. This is where he could let his hair down. You can see he's letting his hair down, he's still wearing the tie, skeet shooting. This is a Remington shotgun. This is where, it was a big place. He had a lot of farmland. You could go horseback riding. He had sharecroppers on his property, and they were all African American. Even though the neighboring white people didn't want that to happen. He retires 1925. He's made billions he's got the biggest monopoly on film in the world. So he can afford to go on big adventures. And this is him in Yosemite on a cliff looking up, and of course there's a camera in his hand. This is him riding a horse in Wyoming. He went to Wyoming until he said it got too crowded. So he didn't go there anymore. But he loved going to the outdoors. He would tend to fires. He loved to cook. And later on we'll have some of his favorite foods. He didn't mind washing plates. But everything was managed. You can see him, he said, up in Canada. I guess there was a lot of flies and mosquitoes, so he's all covered up. You can see there's a camera on him. Never without a camera. Then camping down to his science, he had devised his whole wagon to put all his things on to take on a trip. So it wasn't a camping trip, it was more of an expedition. He had everything planned out to the smallest detail on how to pack and unpack it, and whose chores were going to be, because when he invited guests, they had an assignment, sort of like it was going to work. He always had a lot of guides and people with him when he go on a trip, so he was never alone in the wild. Here he's visiting the Redwoods in a 1928 Cadillac touring car with the roof open. You can see him right here. When he went sailing, he got a sailor's hat. And he always took his family if he could. This is his niece and her son. He's sort of smiling here. Usually you don't see him smile on any pictures. This is him. You always go hunting in a suit, don't you? This is him in Alaska on a boat. And this is a Springfield bolt-action rifle with a scope. And he was a smoker. You always see he had a cigarette in his hand. This is him going hunting with a tie and vest. He was always with a tie. In 1927, he goes on an African safari. And you think he'd be walking, but they took cars. Martin and Osa Johnson were on safari with George. This is Osa, Martin, this is, of course, George. They made travel films using what Kodak cameras and Kodak film. So they had an end with George. So they would go and take a safari in Kenya. Now I'm going to show a film. There's hunting scenes in here, so it might be disturbing for some people. So if you want to look away, that's fine. I'll tell you when it's safe to look again. Yeah. This is George's own home movies. I heard this are safari, and that's Osa. Osa was like a daughter to him, and he always looked upon her very fondly. Here's a charging lion. There's a dead lion. And I think that what they did is they had the natives push the animals toward the hunters, and they just waited in ambush. Here, this is a rhinoceros. Here it charges. It almost hits George, but they were able to bag it. And all these animals that had their heads mounted in his mansion on the 3rd floor, except for the elephant, which we'll get to in a minute. There's him taking pictures of the camels there. And he's bothering the camel, trying to get his attention. And I don't think it works out very well for him. But this is what happens.
Oh, a camel.
Yeah. This is on a river in Africa. This is Osa in the middle. She sort of looks like the Kodak girl. And he stumbles on this village that's called Kodak. He thought he had a monopoly on that. So he had to take a picture with the natives there. Yeah. And filming with his camera. I believe that's General Pershing on the right, World War I general. This is the Martins, the Johnsons, I mean. Lois is trying to get George in the camera. There, she finally does see. Let's talk a little bit about the elephant kill. He shoots this bull elephant, and only has one tusk. But there's 2 tusks on one mounted in his conservatory. This is the real tusk on the elephant. He had fake ones put in there to make it look right. This is him with his trophy rhino. Like I say, he almost got killed doing this. Now let's talk about what he did with his money. This is Mr. Smith, aka George Eastman. He didn't want anybody to know that he was donating his millions to anything. Now he worked so long before the word got out. But he donates millions to dental clinics, Rochester Philharmonic Orchestra, Eastman School of Music, the Eastman Theater, colleges, RIT, MIT, Tuskegee. I find this ironic because he funded black colleges, but he didn't have any black employees at Kodak. 0. And in the Eastman Theater, they're only allowed to sit in the balcony. So, kind of a mixed message there by George. Well, he donates $625,000 to RIT and $2.5 to MIT. This is where he was getting all the bright minds for his laboratories. He was going there and farming and getting the brightest and the smartest. This is the Rochester Dental Clinic. I believe he got into dentistry because he watched his mother have a tooth extracted at the kitchen table with a pair of pliers. And I thought that taking care of your teeth early when you're a child was key. So he started all these dentist clinics.
Did he have any competition for making film at this time?
No, he owned 80% of the market. Yeah. This is a dental office, no lines, no waiting. So it wasn't only in America, he started dental clinics all over Europe. This is a French dental clinic. He also loved music and operas and plays. He would go to New York City, and in 5 days he'd 12 shows. That's how much he loved it. So he donated money to this building and putting a school of music down there. This is what it looks like today outside. Let's get back to Waterville. 1930 school was going to be completed, but it needed an auditorium, so they sent a letter to George Eastman for a donation. He gave $50,000. So he'd probably be at least $1 million today. And the stipulation is you had to have Eastman over the entrance. So if you go by there today and look over, you'll see Eastman Auditorium right there. This is the girls' entrance in the school. Back in the 30s, there was a boy entrance and a girl. This is on the right-hand side. The main papers, auditorium opened in 1930. Had 562 seats. Made the front page of the Waterville Times. That's what it looked like. They had all the modern equipment. Movie cameras, fine drinks, best of everything. So what happens to him? He gets spinal stenosis, and when he's 77, he can barely shuffle around. He's in extreme pain. So he calls in his friends in the morning, and they witness him updating his will. He says, I am tired, I'm going to go upstairs and write some notes. He goes upstairs, and he lies down in bed, and he takes a wet washcloth, and he puts it over his chest. And he knew where his heart was, because he asked his doctor. That's how we know he planned this. And he took a revolver and shot himself. And of course, later on, the guests and the servants came up and found him. They found this suicide note, and it says, to my friends, my work is done, why wait? So that's what you ever hear of George Eastman. This is the Waterville Times publishing an article on George Eastman. He says he passes away, he doesn't mention anything about suicide until you get in here. And you guys picture the Kodak King ran front page. They lowered the flags in Waterville to half-mast in honor of George Eastman.
That's the headline. In the story, do they say committed suicide?
Yeah. Failing health, was born in Waterville. Then he gets in here and they talk about it. So what's George Eastman's legacy? What did he leave us? Well, the Kodak camera was in the moon orbiter. He took pictures of the dark side of the moon for the first time. Great innovation. In 1975, this gentleman, Steve Sasson, comes up with this new invention that he had, he's working on an R&D, the first digital camera. How many people here have a digital camera with you today? Let's see them. Let's get them out. Let's get your camera out. Everybody got one? Let's get them out. Let's see them. Who's got them? I always wanted to do this. All right, let's get them up so we can see everybody with a camera. See what George has done for us. So when he comes out with this camera in 1975, the board of directors say, bury that, don't tell anyone. Because for every dollar they took in for film, they made 80 cents. So there was billions in the film industry. This is going to kill it. So he did. They buried it. He wasn't allowed to tell anybody about it. And this was like a tenth of a megapixel. Today your phones have like 1 million pixels in it. So eventually the technology got out. The competitors had a jump start on it because they were trying to repress this and they were pushing it. So the competition got a foothold and Kodak would never catch up. So the company in the 70s had billions of assets. In 2012, they were filing for bankruptcy. They would come out of bankruptcy, but they were nothing like they were. The film industry, they stopped making cameras for the public. Film disappeared. Now you'll see Fuji film once in a while.
Is this because of the advent of the cell phone?
Because
Explosion?
we had three things. First you had digital photography, then you had the internet and computers where you could move pictures all around and you didn't have to develop. Because Kodak thought, oh yeah, everybody's going to want prints. But how many of you have about 1,000 pictures on your phone right now? Do you print them out? So that they just couldn't get that in their head that this was the future. Yeah.
What about Polaroid?
Polaroid? That's nothing. That's a fly on the back of the elephant.
So they're not one and the same?
Huh? They're no Polaroid. No. They had a camera like that.
Oh.
That was kept for a while. So I took this picture because it's almost a smile, George. I also like to point out that Eastman legacy is that all those people that worked in those factories, a lot of them got cancer. And all those toxic chemicals that are used for making film got dumped in the Genesee River. You cannot eat any fish out of the Genesee River today. That's how much poison's out there. And it's a super fun in a lot of those areas. So you had to live with that, but that was common practice back in the day. A lot of companies are like that.
Was that the river that got on fire in the 50s?
No, you're thinking of the Love Canal.
Yeah.
Cleveland was the one that caught fire.
Yeah. All right. Now, a special person in my life has set up desserts in the back that were George Eastman's favorites. We got lemon meringue, and we have rice pudding. So enjoy.
Where is he
Yes.
buried?
He's buried in Rochester. He had his ashes buried in this monument in this big park. Yes, Ann?
I've got a little bit of information which maybe or may not be interesting. When I was really young, living in the UK, almost everything was brown,
Right.
and they were all black. And then they brought a brown version, and it was really pretty. I got one. It was, oh, I was kidding myself. It was tan with brown accents, and it was really, really pretty, but it was basically the same as the black one. It's just
Right.
that the brownie eventually became brown.
Does Kodak still make film?
Yeah, they make like film for medical imaging. Yeah, but you can't go to the store and find one.
They don't do these.
No, they got out of the consumer market. They sold all their patents, basically to keep the company afloat. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Maybe I missed it. Did you say where the word brownie came from?
It was, oh, no, that's a good question. There was a popular cartoon
Okay.
with Brownie in it. So it's like Tony and the Tiger, or, you know, it was popular back then. That's how they got the name for Brownie.
And then they also came up with the term outfit.
Outfit?
Outfit, when you bought like a brownie schematic.
Oh, I'm not,
They called it a camera outfit. I don't know if anybody else ever heard that.
that's probably before my time.
Maybe not before your time.
All right.
I've got one of the box cameras, but it's red.
Yeah. Anything else? Yes?
When did they start the color film?
Oh, that came out in the early 30s. And I was talking to my mother the other night. I said, we were watching a film, 1965, Gregory Peck in it. I said, why is it in black and white when they had color film before World War I? Or World War II? I didn't have an answer for that. Because they came out with Kodachrome. That was their invention. They had color. And there was some photography in World War II with color, but never made the mainstream until much later. Of course, I had a black and white TV. When did we have that, Tomas? The 70s? Yeah, so, yeah, that's good thinking. All right. Thank you for coming.